Hey pups, RP here, and welcome back to another fanfiction reading, or welcome if you're new here. And today's fanfiction is going to be one involving Pride Month, or at least I hope it's Pride Month when this gets edited, finished, and uploaded. But you know how weird my upload schedule is, so But anyway, I found the perfect fanfiction. It's very cute, and it does involve the My Little Pony fandom, and it is about my favorite MLP ship, Fluttershy x Pinkie Pie, otherwise known as PinkieShy or Flutter Pie, depending on how you see the ship or want to call it or what have you. The link to the original fanfiction will be in the description below. Be sure to show the OG author the love and support that they most definitely deserve and need. And with all that being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Surprise by Geo50X.
This is going to be great!
Pinkie thought as she bounced on the somewhat busy streets of Ponyville.
Now I think I can do it!
She thought with great happiness. This would be the day she would tell Fluttershy about her feelings. Yes, Pinkie has had a crush on Fluttershy for a while now, but never really found the courage or the right words. She usually was the kind of pony who just says what she has to say, then finishes it with a big smile and a laugh. But this was a different kind of matter, and no laughing matter. No way. This was a more serious thing, and Pinkie wasn't really good at serious things. Well, mostly.
And this is Fluttershy I'm dealing with here.
Pinkie thought, her thoughts becoming a bit more serious, and her movements have completely halted when she started thinking more about Fluttershy.
I can't just go to her and be all like, "Hi Fluttershy, I totally really like you. Want a kiss?"
She thought.
She'd probably think it was a joke or worse,
Pinkie thought, suddenly gulping a bit loudly.
And what if I might upset her from it?
She thought frightenedly.
What if I make her cry? Or worse, yell at me not wanting to see me ever, forever, never?
Pinkie could already see how badly things might go if she didn't do this right.
I really need some help. But who should I ask?
She thought. At first, she thought about Twilight. She was really smart, and no doubt had some books that might give her good tips. But then she might turn this into a boring research session, and that might not work so well for Fluttershy. Then there was Rarity, but she might have something way too romantic and too fancy that Pinkie wouldn't like to do. Rainbow Dash would just tell her to pucker up and kiss her, and going forward like that wouldn't be so nice for poor Fluttershy. Applejack will probably just have no idea, just like her.
But who's going to help me then?
Pinkie almost wailed inwardly. Wasn't there any pony that she knew who could tell her what to do?
Wait,
Pinkie suddenly thought.
Of course!
She then suddenly jumped. It was a great idea.
I can ask them!
She thought cheerfully. And then, suddenly, without any warning, Pinkie darted in the opposite direction she was originally walking. Soon, Pinkie had reached her destination, Sugar Cube Corner.
Mr. and Mrs. Cake!
Pinkie cried out as she crashed inside the shop.
I need your help!
The two ponies, including the few customers they had for a moment, looked at Pinkie Pie with large shocked eyes. Pinkie's antics should already be familiar to all of them, but still, there were just too many moments where Pinkie was just able to surprise them still. Was all both cakes were able to say at the moment as they exchanged looks between each other. They had expected not to see Pinkie this early, and like this.
Honey?
Mrs. Cake asked her husband after a moment of silence.
Would you take care of this? I'll join you as quickly as I can.
Sure thing, Sugar Bun, Mr. Cake replied, then pointing at the kitchen door for Pinkie, telling her to go there, to which Pinkie immediately complied and darted into the kitchen, while feeling even more nervous than before. So, what's this problem of yours, Pinkie? Mr. Cake asked, when he closed the door, and hoping that this was really something important. Not that Pinkie had some important matters, but there have been rather many times where these matters have not been so important. Pinkie took a breath before starting to talk.
I actually have a crush on some pony, so don't know what to do, and so I was wondering if you could help me out.
Mr. Cake just stared at Pinkie, completely confused by what she had said. Pinkie? Can you say it again? And maybe a bit more slowly? He asked.
Sorry, Mr. Cake.
Pinkie apologized.
It's really hard to tell when there's a swarm of parasites in my stomach,
she explained. That got Mr. Cake's attention. Pinkie was never really nervous, or at least this nervous, when she wanted to tell them something.
Perhaps I should play the parasite polka, so I can get them out of my tummy, and then...
Pinkie? Mr. Cake warned Pinkie that she was turning away from the topic.
Oh, sorry.
Pinkie gave Mr. Cake a sheepish grin.
Well, you see, Mr. Cake?
Pinkie then started slowly. Yes?
I have...
Pinkie continued, but as she was nearing that word, she found herself stuttering. Yes?
a crush on some pony.
Pinkie finally said it, although she said it so quietly that Mr. Cake had a hard time hearing it. Sorry, Pinkie Pie, but would you repeat that? He asked. It couldn't have been what he thought he heard, but before Pinkie tried to say it again, the kitchen door opened, and Mrs. Cake walked in. Well, I'm done now, she said. So, what Pinkie had to say? She asked her husband. She was about to, Mr. Cake explained, but she's having some problems expressing herself. Mrs. Cake looked at her husband with a puzzled look at the way he pronounced the word problem. Both Cakes turned to Pinkie, waiting for her to speak. But it was much easier said than done. Now that Mrs. Cake was here, it was even harder to say.
Come on, Pinkie Pie,
she thought while twisting her face, as she tried to explain herself.
Why must this be so super duper really hard?
While still waiting for Pinkie to talk, the Cakes couldn't help but notice the facial expressions Pinkie threw at them. They both had seen these kinds of expressions before, especially in their own lives. But it just almost seemed not impossible for Pinkie to feel something like this. Not that they didn't want to seem rude or anything. Neither of them had imagined that Pinkie would actually be emotionally interested in someone. But they could be wrong too.
I have a crush on the pony!
Pinkie then exclaimed, fast. Although this time Mr. Cake could understand her, and so did Mrs. Cake. And it was just shocking that the Pinkie Pie they had known and worked with had a crush on some pony. And who might this be? Mrs. Cake asked carefully. Try not to stress Pinkie. Once again, Pinkie was struggling with her words, although it shouldn't be so hard. They were only Mr. and Mrs. Cake. They were like a second family to her, and she was sure they would understand. She stuttered, starting to sound more like the mare she was having a crush on.
I have a crush on Fluttershy,
she muttered. Sorry, Pinkie, but can't repeat that? Mrs. Cake asked carefully. She was sure that she heard Pinkie mentioning Fluttershy.
I have a crush on Fluttershy!
Pinkie finally cried out.
And I don't know how to tell her that!
Pinkie then started panting loudly after she had revealed her deep secret, leaving the two Cakes looking at her in shock and confusion. And they stayed that way, looking at Pinkie Pie, who unfortunately took that silent shock in a negative way.
Please don't be mad at me! I promise I won't say anything about this, and...
Pinkie was clearly silenced by Mrs. Cake's hoof.
No need to get all distressed, Pinkie,
Mrs. Cake said in a comforting, yet slightly raised voice, so Pinkie could actually listen to her. I'm sorry for not reacting immediately, she then apologized. We were just a bit surprised that, well, you out of any pony, actually having a crush on somebody else.
Huh?
Pinkie raised an eyebrow, her mood changing, like she didn't have the small breakdown a couple moments ago.
Is it that weird?
She then asked. No, I mean that neither of us really thought you would start considering a relationship, Mrs. Cake continued, explaining.
Oh!
Pinkie replied in realization.
So does this mean you are going to help me?
Pinkie then asked. Well, of course we will, Mrs. Cake exclaimed happily. Can't let you go and maybe ruin your first date with Fluttershy, she smiled. She is such a nice filly. You got that right, dear, Mr. Cake chuckled. So, Pinkie, have you even thought about how to bring this up with Fluttershy? He asked.
Well, I kind of thought about throwing a party,
Pinkie started, but cut herself off when noticing the looks the Cakes gave her.
But then I quickly realized that, wait, Fluttershy doesn't like big parties with so many ponies, and wouldn't certainly like it if I go all crazy telling every single pony in Ponyville that I love you, Fluttershy crazy, she explained. And then I started thinking that there might be another way than just a good old-fashioned party,
she said in a serious tone, or at least tried.
Is there some other way than a party?
Pinkie then innocently asked. The two Cakes couldn't help but chuckle at Pinkie. Well, Mr. Cake then started, his voice still holding slight laughter in. There is one way, certainly. He then turned to his wife, silently asking her to continue. A date, Mrs. Cake finished.
A date?
Pinkie asked, puzzled. Yes, a date, Mrs. Cake repeated. Take her somewhere nice. have a nice little dinner, or make your own. But most importantly, it must be private, Mrs. Cake finished. And that means no other ponies around with you. Just you and her, Mr. Cake added.
But what's that part about taking her someplace nice?
Pinkie then questioned.
Isn't that a bit like taking the place with every pony around us? How is that private?
Both Cakes replied. This is going to take a while. After what felt like almost forever with the Cakes, Pinkie was finally able to leave Sugar Cube Corner and was now heading towards Fluttershy's place with a good idea.
I'm going to give her a surprise party. Too bad it can't be her birthday, as it's so far away, but still.
Pinkie thought excitedly.
And it'll be so great.
She was now nearing Fluttershy's cottage, but as she was nearing the door, it suddenly opened and Fluttershy stepped outside.
Hey Fluttershy! Fluttershy!
Pinkie called, trying to get the PinkieShy's attention, which she almost immediately did when she started calling, jumping and waving her hooves like crazy.
Oh, hey Pinkie.
Fluttershy greeted her with her meek voice.
What are you doing here?
She then asked.
Well...
Pinkie started.
I was hoping to see you, because you see, I have something really... Well, that's good, Pinkie. Did Fluttershy just...
Pinkie thought in both confusion and almost fear.
Interrupt me? Are you okay?
Fluttershy then asked, noticing the big shocked eyes Pinkie now wore.
Well, was it something I said?
Fluttershy asked, her voice getting slightly lower, and now Pinkie started to feel even more distressed.
Oh no, this is not a good start. Oh, don't worry about that.
Pinkie gave a somewhat weak chuckle to Fluttershy, trying to make her see that it was alright.
So, what were you going to say?
She then decided to ask, better just to get it over with, what Fluttershy had to say, so she could get back to her plan.
Oh, well, I was going to ask if you would like to go for a picnic.
Pinkie wasn't sure what to think. On one hoof, this was the greatest, bestest time to tell Fluttershy about her feelings, but then that would mean she'd had to go against what the Cakes had instructed her, and she also liked the idea.
Of course I'd love to come.
Pinkie smiled, as she was going to say something more, but Fluttershy beat her to it.
And her friends will also be there, of course.
Fluttershy smiled. Pinkie could feel her spirits flatten, almost as fast as her mane, when she had believed that her friends didn't like her parties, and didn't want to be her friends anymore. This almost felt even worse, almost as if Fluttershy had rejected her already.
Pinkie, are you alright?
Fluttershy asked discerningly, as Pinkie was once again a little too quiet.
No, can't be all sad now.
Pinkie started to think.
I bet I can still find a way to tell her about me. So, what do you want to say?
Fluttershy finished.
Huh?
Fluttershy responded with a quiet giggle.
It seems that your mind is flowing all around more than usual, isn't it, Pinkie?
Pinkie couldn't for some reason make herself speak. Instead, random rambles were the only things that escaped her mouth for a moment. But she quickly found her speaking ability.
So, what did you say earlier?
She then asked, hoping to change the topic.
Oh yes.
Fluttershy started.
I was asking if you wanted to race with me too.
She asked. The only answer Fluttershy seemed to receive were the sounds of crickets.
Sure!
Pinkie then suddenly and literally bursted, which even took Fluttershy just slightly by surprise. But that was just a momentary lapse, as Fluttershy was quickly back to her much more cheerful side.
Oh, well, that's good.
She smiled. Then suddenly, without any warning, Fluttershy reached with her front hoof and nudged her shoulder.
Tag!
She then proclaimed, trying to sound as if she was saying it loudly, but she wasn't fooling anyone, of course. Fluttershy then darted off as fast as her wings could carry, leaving the dumbfounded Pinkie behind, but that didn't last long.
Hey!
She yelled back at Fluttershy.
That wasn't fair, Flutters!
She then sprinted after Fluttershy. Soon Pinkie was catching up with Fluttershy. A bit slower, as it seemed Fluttershy was faster. Soon Pinkie was catching up with Fluttershy, but a bit slower, as it seems Fluttershy was faster than she had anticipated.
I bet with my cupcake savings that Dashy's behind this,
she thought, as she tried to catch up with the yellow Pegasus. As the chase continued, Pinkie Pie was getting a little bit irritated, as every time she seemed to reach Fluttershy, she suddenly started flying faster. They repeated the act a few more times, which only made Pinkie even more irritated.
When did Fluttershy become like that?
Pinkie asked herself, and soon, Pinkie thought about something she probably shouldn't have. But at this point, she hadn't really cared, as she just wanted to win this little game of tag to the end. She didn't like being the tagger. She would rather just run away, giggling as no pony would be able to capture her. What happened next became a bit blurry for Pinkie, but what she did remember was her suddenly almost soaring through the air towards Fluttershy, who didn't seem to suspect anything, and before either of them knew it, they were rolling on the ground. And then it all stopped, as Pinkie's vision was obscured by pink and yellow. For a moment, Pinkie didn't know what had just happened, or what was happening right now, but her senses quickly got back when the color started shaking, and she heard strange noises beneath her. She then quickly realized what had happened, and on what, or rather who, she was laying on, and now she was sobbing.
Oh no, Fluttershy!
Pinkie thought distressingly.
Oh no, this is all bad. I just jumped on Fluttershy, and now I've gone and hurt her.
Pinkie could feel a large lump rising in her throat.
Sorry, really so sorry, Fluttershy.
Pinkie cried.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Pinkie could now feel herself starting to sob.
I just got really
But Pinkie stopped her rambling, or rather was forced to end it, as Fluttershy pressed her lips against Pinkie's. Everything seemed to explode around Pinkie. Her trail of thought completely halted for a while. Fluttershy laughed weakly.
Surprise?
Alrighty, that was the PinkieShy fanfiction, Surprise. I hope you all liked it. And again, the original story and the OP of the story are in the description below. Be sure to check those out, and be sure to check the OP out as well. Give them lots of love and support. And with all that being said, I will see you on the next one. Kiriacho, RP is out. Peace.